The man in the morning with us now, Pat's Interference here on Monday morning after the draft. We are not going to start, though, with any rookies, with Doug Kyed, the people's favorite guest, and the man who broke Christian Barmore's extension with the Patriots 4 years, $84 million, but $92 if he does really, really, really well. And coming out, according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, $41.8 million guaranteed. You and I were just talking off air and had been texting about this deal for weeks, maybe a couple of months. Yep. But you broke it. Well, tell the people how you broke it, where you were, what you're doing.
I was at the gym. My friend Brad Spielberger used to work at PFF, now working with an agency, texted me and was like, "Hey, good job on breaking the story." I was literally sweating it out at the gym. I was in the middle of doing hip thrusts. There's a hip thrust machine at my gym, so I'm literally strapped in the machine, tweeting and publishing the story and doing all that stuff. Everyone's probably wondering why the hell this jerk is taking so long on the hip thrust machine, but yeah, that's what I was doing when I broke the story. And then, Adam Schefter came in with a lot of the contract details, but great to be the first one on the news that the deal was officially done. The deal was officially done as of this morning. So big news for the Patriots to get Christian Barmore's extension done. And obviously it just reiterates the priority for the Patriots this offseason to re-sign as many of their own guys as possible, many of those being their own draft picks.
It was officially done, set 3, rep 4, 5? I think that's the time that we need, not necessarily the Eastern time zone.
Yeah, I think it was right after rep 1 because I knew that it was close. I was like, do I start this? Do I not start this? I thought that I still had a few more minutes, but it is what it is. But you got to work from anywhere on this job, and that includes the gym. I won't dox myself and say what gym I was at, but I was at the gym.
Good man. All right, so we are going to hit Christian Barmore here for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to get to what's promised in the title of this episode, which is draft grades and projected roles for the 8 new rookies. We'll hit a little UDFAs, but look, the guys who were drafted for a reason, for multiple reasons. So we're going to dive into them and then get Doug out of here. But staying with Barmore, like I said, you and I have been texting and talking about this for weeks and months, and it was my understanding, mostly through you, is that this really picked up between Barmore and the team around the combine. So take us as best you can, because these are always delicate for the people listening. Mm-hmm. When you go inside something, or we write insider story, there's always more that that you can't share as to protect a source or not betray something you would promise not to say without, of course, giving a partial truth. But that's what this is. As long as it's representative of what happened, that's what we want to share with you. That's the only thing we want to share is the truth. It's just not going to be every little detail because relationships are involved. So with that as a backdrop, go.
Yeah, I mean, these talks really started at the combine. Christian Barmore now, exited the third year of his contract. So that's when the Patriots and his agent could begin these talks. They could not extend him before he finished up his 3-year mark. So really this deal got done pretty much as early as it possibly could have. But yeah, talks started at the combine. And then there was some, defensive tackle contracts that were executed during free agency that, might have pushed this contract extension a little bit further out than maybe initially anticipated. I think that all parties kind of thought that it might get done a little bit before late April, but in the long run, it got done, and that's the most important thing. Some other just key details on it. I think Barmore ranks 11th now among defensive tackles in, is it guaranteed money or APY?
So he's 12th by total guarantees, according to Spot Track, and max value he's 8th, along with average annual value. But I think we're waiting for some of the base numbers to kick in, and that's the numbers we care about, right? The guarantees and the base salary.
An important note there, though, is that a lot of those other guys, I'm not sure if it's all of them or most of them, were, first-round picks. So a lot of the guarantees are baked in with that 5th-year option baked into the contract, whereas Christian Barmore, a second-round pick, the only one of those guys who signed after the 3rd year of his deal. So he's getting paid early, which is certainly important for a defensive tackle. But it also gives the Patriots, credit to them for drafting Christian Barmore in the 2nd round, being able to get this deal done after his 3rd year and, maybe not getting a bargain on him, but getting him cheaper than they probably would have if they had drafted him at the end of the 1st round or somewhere else in the draft. So it is a deal that works out for all parties. And certainly a lot of credit to Christian Barmore for the season that he had last year as well, to earn this contract after just the third year of his NFL career.
All right, let's stay with Barmore, the player, for a second, and then go to the contract, because there's a lot of interesting little things that you just hit on there. Number one of which is people underestimate, I think, on the outside, and this is something I only came to learn more recently, is how much draft status matters in the negotiation of the second contract. Like, that is held against you as if your report card in high school, or like where you went to college, regardless of the grades you had since then, gives you a little bit of bump when you're applying for jobs when you finally get out there. So Christian Barmore, second round pick, like you mentioned, he's still only 24. Again, 24 years old as some draft picks that were made over the weekend. 8.5 sacks last year, 13 tackles for loss, 16 quarterback hits. This is from your story up on the Herald site. Was Pro Football Focus's 8th highest graded defensive tackle at 83.8. And if you want to dismiss PFF, fine. I mean, again, we have Duck. He used to work at PFF. But what I would tell you about those grades is they don't miss on one end or the other. It's usually in the middle. The guys highest graded are good. The guys worst graded are bad. And we can all agree upon that. So when you look at the deal again in that context of where he's at in his career, his draft status, 4 years, $84 million, $92 million total, with about half of this guaranteed. Good deal for the Patriots, great deal, so-so deal. What do you make of it?
First of all, if you're watching this on YouTube and being like, why is Doug sweating on this show? It's a combination of combination of factors. First of all, it's unseasonably warm in Boston right now. And so during a podcast, you can't have air conditioning on. So don't mind me if I'm like constantly wiping my brow. It's just really hot in here right now. But I think it's a really good deal for the Patriots. Because, I mean, you're locking up really who's going to be, if he's not already, your best defensive player. Like, yeah, I guess that the argument could be made throwing Matthew Judon in there, throwing Christian Gonzalez in there. But, like, if you add in everything, like proven track record, plus age, plus everything, like Christian Barmore is one of your cornerstones of this team. Lock him up for 4 years, $84 million, not have him be the highest paid defensive tackle. I do. I think it's a really good deal for the Patriots to get this deal done now. It's essentially it could essentially be a 2-year deal with the guarantees plus the length of the contract. Obviously, the hope is that he's here for all 4 years and they extend him even beyond that. And that's an important factor too. Is that if you talk about it from Christian Barmore's angle as well, he's 24. He just signed a 4-year contract extension. Like, he could be getting a second big deal in free agency when he's 28, 29 years old. So that works out for him as well.
It really does. I'm with you. I would give this a B+, if not a little bit higher for the Patriots, because the other context, not just, he was drafted in the second round, not the first, is that the defensive tackle market freaking exploded somehow, even while Aaron Donald retired. And so this money is really palatable. Again, when you look at the maximum value, which is not always indicative of what he's paid, 8th. That doesn't sound great. I don't think anyone would consider Christian Barmore the 8th best defensive tackle in the league, but you might in a year or two. This is what you're paying.
He was by PFF anyway,
Right. Yeah. I forgot those numbers lined up. The total guarantees have him at the 12th highest. That's really comfortable for me right now. And that will feel great in a year or two, which is, again, what you're projecting, particularly when the cap, look, it goes up every year, but we're continuing to see these large. This year was an unprecedented spike as the continued influx of new TV money. And I think you'll see international money with all these different marketing rights and yada, yada, yada. The point being, I think this is a great deal given his age, his production, where he's at within the market. And I would probably put the higher end outcomes for Matt Judon and Christian Gonzalez ahead of Barmore. But again, if he's in the top 3 and you're paying one of your top 3 defenders a deal that's going to end up outside the top 10 for his position, that's great value. Anything we missed on here?
No, I mean, one other point that I would add on that is that this is a deal that could look even better as time continues. I mean, I know it's going to take a while before Jordan Davis signs a contract extension, but I'm assuming that he'll wind up getting paid more than Christian Barmore. Jalen Carter as well could wind up getting paid more than Christian Barmore. So like it's going to look better with time as well, as long as Christian Barmore can continue the ascent that he had, or even just maintain the ascent that he had last season under Gerard Mayo and under DeMarcus Covington. And he's going to be playing in the same defense. He's got some players, coaches around him. So it seems like, sky's the limit for Christian Barmore. And I mean, the reaction that I saw from Patriots fans was overwhelmingly positive about this as well. So, I do think that this is a smaller point, but Elliott Wolf is kind of beginning to like turn the tides a little bit for some Patriots fans to be a little bit more on the side of the new regime, because I do think that Patriots fans like what they're building, like what they're doing, especially after the draft, which that's a good segue because now we're going to be getting into the draft.
Well, we're going to throw on the brakes for a second because I can never make up my mind. I want to check on you. You still good? How's the heat check over there? You look okay, but a little pale.
I know I am looking pale right now. I don't know why that is. Oh, I actually don't have a light on in this room. I think that's why I'm looking pale.
Okay. Well, I'm going to throw on the brakes. I'm going to run through 3 quick points, 2 of which just hit my mind, and one of them you inspired, and the other thing I'm going to get to, and then we're going to dismount and go straight to the draft. And so the first one is this. Christian Barmore, if you remember, in 2021, was one of these prospects that was hit very vaguely with an off-field character issue type of tag concerns. And I would not just say that was irresponsible because of the way things have played out. Those were irresponsible and unfair at the time, as I said, after talking with some people closer to him and around the scouting process, because it did not differentiate from a guy who's a risk for getting arrested or beating someone or breaking the law versus the dude just needs to learn how to do his own laundry and live his life outside of a football field in a very structured program, particularly someone who just jumped into football in high school in Philadelphia and then goes straight to Tuscaloosa. There's a lot of culture change going on there for a dude who, again, at the time was just 21. He's just 24 now. He's grown up. He's matured. I'm not saying he's done maturing, but you remember that the guys who get hit with this tag at this age, 21, 22, oh, you're immature. Shocker. A lot of us were, and that's okay as long as you learn to grow, and the Patriots obviously hit that. Number 2 is, Elliott Wolf winning people over, obviously, probably people who are still entrenched in the Bill Belichick should still be here camp. And I would just say, no one's coming to rescue you. Like, the infantry is not coming over the hill. Just move on. But I heard it on the radio when you broke this story about, another play that Bill Belichick couldn't draft. You are smarter than this if you believe that, okay? We can deal in nuance in that largely Bill Belichick had bad drafts over his last 10 years. It doesn't mean every player was bad. It means relative to the rest of the league, the Patriots underperformed. That largely explains why they were 29 and 39, and I'll leave it there. He drafted some good players. Those players are staying. The rest, obviously, are not. And to dismount and transition to number 3. The Patriots have gotten all these new contract extensions done. Kyle Duggar, Mike Onwenu, Christian Barmore, new deals or re-signings. And the next one is arguably more important than all of them because it's Elliott Wolf's. His contract is up in a couple of weeks. And what I would say to the Crafts, to ownership, who chose him over Matt Groh and anyone else over available in the market, even on a short-term basis, he's done exactly what he told you he would do. Extend core players, spend wisely in free agency, draft a quarterback, and weaponize the offense by drafting receivers around him. If you are unhappy with the job that Elliott Wolf does, you have not been paying attention to his own words. And I would give the overall offseason a B to a B+. I think a solid, really good start, laying the foundation. You missed in Calvary Ridley, it happens. But overall, this man has lived up to his word, and this franchise is in a better place than it was 4 months ago, and it's mostly because of him. Extend him next and keep this ball rolling.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I mean, there are still a lot of Bill Belichick defenders out there. And yeah, he deserves credit for drafting the guys that the Patriots did re-sign.
For sure.
I mean, listen, Bill Belichick was the greatest, among the greatest things that's ever happened to the Patriots. It's him, Tom Brady, Robert Kraft, in some sort of order. And he's the greatest head coach of all time, one of the greatest GMs of all time. But there was a reason why they went 4-13 last season. And when he was the guy who was in charge of everything, it ultimately falls on him. I would still maintain that, I mean, we'll see if it was the best decision to move on from Bill Belichick. But there's only so much that you can defend when the team has been poor over the last 3 or so years. And yeah, no, I mean, Elliott Wolf, certainly, if this was a trial period for Elliott Wolf, he's done everything right. I even think that we'll see how the Calvin Ridley deal winds up working out for the Tennessee Titans. Yeah, it would have been fun to bring in a legitimate veteran wide receiver who could potentially be a number 1. but that doesn't mean that he's going to wind up being worth the money that the Titans gave him.
Right.
And only time will tell on that. And like, I don't know. I was never 100% fully on board with the idea of the Calvin Ridley deal. I just thought that there were some risks involved there. He's an old prospect or an older player. He has had like, the gambling issues. There was other, I don't know. There was just a lot of risk there to be giving him that much money. So
well, and he was a 1B, right? Like at his peak, there was a lot of statistical comps between him and Mike Williams. Obviously, the difference is Mike Williams' ACL is not whole yet, and the man can't, run at full speed or wherever he is in his recovery. Calvin Ridley was healthy, granted just a bit older, but they were comfortable. And no one would call Mike Williams even a 1B, which is what Calvin Ridley is. All right, let's look forward, though, because we're here mostly to talk about the draft. I would give the Patriots overall draft kind of like the rest of their offseason, a B or a B+. And we're going to go pick by pick to explain how we arrived there. But for the crowd, again, who would say draft grades, oh, my God, no one knows what these prospects are going to be in 2 to 3 years. First of all, you're right. Yeah. Second of all, we're giving you more credit than that to say you're smarter, and we all understand this. But what we can do is assess what the Patriots did based on what we know about these prospects, right? Their athletic profiles, their tape, and where they fit in the historical trends of, hey, receivers who are really statistically productive in college and can separate tend to do pretty well in the NFL. Okay. And then you look at their team needs and their other options at the time they make their pick. So basically, did the Patriots more often than not take the best player available who fits into historical trends for success while they prioritize premium positions and made sure that of all their options, trade up, trade back, stay and pick, they did the best thing. Easy enough? No, of course not. But we're going to pretend like it is to give these trades. So the way we're going to go this is not first to seventh round or seventh to first. I want you to lead off with the pick that you felt the strongest about. So this grade either got one of your highest marks, an A+ or an A, or wherever you landed at the bottom. My lowest grade was a C-, and we'll come up and we'll alternate and go back and forth. So the player in the pick you felt most strongly about was what?
I don't think this will come, and maybe it'll come as somewhat of a surprise, but 4th round pick, 110th overall, UCF wide receiver, Javon Baker. I'd give it an A. I think that who knows? There's some risk here just because Javon Baker was somewhat inconsistent during his college career. Everyone saw in his interview after the draft that he might be a little bit of a wild card with the media. We'll see how he is in the building. I think he'll be a good guy in the building. But, this was a 4-star recruit, started his career at Alabama, learned a lot from Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith, went over to UCF, had an extremely productive last season there at UCF, was very good as a junior, was second among FBS wide receivers in yards per catch, big play threat. Sure, he ran like a 4.52 40, whatever it was, but he was a proven playmaker at UCF. He's a big wide receiver. He can compete for that X wide receiver role, but he also said that he's comfortable playing in the slot. He's comfortable playing at the Z wide receiver spot. And I think the one thing, and we'll get into obviously the Patriots' other wide receiver pick in a second here, but the thing that I like about these young wide receivers is that as much success as the Patriots had with their previous offense, there was always the fear, and it was well documented, that young wide receivers struggled when they came to the Patriots, whether that was Tom Brady's fault, Josh McDaniels' fault, the offense's fault, or Bill Belichick's fault. Almost every young wide receiver had a hard time adjusting. I don't think that will continue to be the case. I think this could be a situation where you see, like with the Packers over the last couple of years, young wide receivers come in right away, flourish, can compete right away, can play right away. And that's my expectation for Javon Baker. And like I said, we'll get into Jalen Polk in a second here. But I think that these guys can play right away because the wide receiver depth chart is wide open too. Like there are spots open for these guys to play. I think that they are probably the 2 most talented players on the Patriots wide receiver depth chart. We'll see if they're ready to play, but I have high hopes for both these receivers. I have higher hopes given the draft position for Javon Baker with his pedigree, with his skill set, with everything that he was able to do at UCF. So I would, like I said, A on that one.
I don't have much to add. I also gave it an A. I made myself think, though, for a second, because we get to the start of the 4th round, right? And I don't know where you were posted up, but I was in our one recliner here in my apartment, leaned back, watching pick 103. And I don't remember who had it first, but you see Layden Robinson comes in. Spoiler alert, has my C- grade, the only one I gave out. It's not really his fault. It's just where the Patriots went with the available players on the board. And one of the players was Javon Baker. And so I asked myself later, not in the recliner, somewhere far away, probably taking a walk finally after 3 days of sitting and watching the draft, is, okay, if Javon Baker had gone 103 and Layden Robinson had gone 110, how differently would I feel about those picks?
Right.
The answer is Baker still would be an A, right? Yeah. He was on everyone's list of best available on day 3. Layden Robinson, I probably would have been a lot kinder to than C-, which again, it's not his fault. I still don't love the profile, but I felt very sure about Baker. And I'll leave the rest for a Robinson discussion. But again, a guy who averaged 21.2 yards per catch, 2 first downs worth of more than a fifth of the football field every time he caught the ball. And yeah, there's a lot in the UCF's offense that's not going to translate to the league. And his comments, as much as I was amused as a media member, has me a little concerned for a guy who thinks and he's just going to revive the Patriots organization and championship equity with him and 2 other rookies. Like, crazy talk, but I love the bravado. I love the moxie. I'm not going to tamp that down. I'm not going to pee in his parade. I'm going to encourage Javon Baker to be himself and the Patriots to play him because the talent is there. A+ grade for me. Real quick, another A that I gave out, Drake Maye. I'm all in. I had an whole episode describing why I'm all in. I don't have much more to add. The profile the Patriots should have bet on, the upside, the potential, the attitude. The more I hear him speak, the more confident I am in him. A little bit different from Javon Baker, but it's just a guy who's got, and scouts love to say this, like a little shit to him, like he will do whatever he needs competitively and say F you in the process, which is not a prerequisite for winning, but is the 4th brother out of 4, the youngest out of just like a championship sports family who grew up with that tough love and that competitive environment and in those fires. I discounted it a little bit in the pre-draft process. You see it come through now. And this is a dude who, again, turns 22 in August, is going to be expected to command an NFL locker room at 23. You can't do that if you haven't had to fight for your way, in college, in high school, or even in your own backyard or in the driveway. Right. Hoops. Like, he's ready. I think he's made of the right stuff. Doesn't mean it's going to be smooth, but that's all that I got on Drake.
Yeah, he would be the second most. I don't know. What was the exact word that you used? The strongest feeling. He'd be the second strongest feeling for me. A- somewhere around there for Drake Maye. Like it was the obvious pick. It was the right pick. It was exactly what the Patriots should have done. It would have been a reach at that point to try to draft JJ McCarthy as the draft unfolded as well, because he wound up being the 4th quarterback taken. Certainly would have been a reach for Michael Penix or Bo Nix, who went right afterwards.
Well, he would have been the 5th. Well, I guess, McCarthy was the 5th.
McCarthy was the 4th.
Yeah. No, 5th.
No, you're right. Yeah, 5th. Yeah. McCarthy wound up being the 5th.
And I think stroke on me, are you? Those mistakes are normally my domain in our working relationship. Real quickly, though, we forgot the roles. Where do you see Baker fitting in? I'm going to call him wide receiver 4 for next year, I think, is the way this plays out. Maybe 5, because I think there are just some rougher edges that need to be smoothed out before that potential comes forth. And I think they're going to lean on guys like Bourne and Osborne to be just a little bit more ready. But I think he could get in the mix.
Yeah, I think that's probably the safe way to say it, is like wide receiver 5. But I also kind of think that one of these rookies winds up starting. Yeah, I just think that that's the way that this is going to unfold, because they are the most talented players in that wide receiver room. And I don't think it's a guarantee that it's going to be Jalen Polk over Javon Baker, just given their pedigree, given how good they were last season, like given the expectations for these players. So like, yeah, the floor and the reality is probably going to be wide receiver 5, but there's also a non-zero chance that he's like wide receiver 1 for the Patriots in 2024. And yeah, for Drake Maye, obviously, I don't know. I'll let you talk first on Drake Maye, on what the role you think he's going to be.
I think people are underrating how soon he could be ready, because we talked about things like mechanics and people are like, oh, you have to strip it down to the studs. Like, you're banking on the potential. It's footwork. Quarterback experts have identified footwork as the most easily fixable flaw in a quarterback. Yeah. He's also someone who you and I know thoroughly impressed the Patriots on the whiteboard in their interviews with them. Like, knows ball, talks ball, is all about ball. And the Patriots dismissed the offense that he was in at North Carolina, not because of a lack of talent, but because things just didn't marry up. And as I'm watching snap after snap after snap, and these very basic route concepts, or the pass game they wanted to keep with their old offensive coordinator in 2022, and this new run game and protection set, he's in the gun the whole time. It's mostly empty or 10 or 11 personnel. Like, he didn't have a whole lot of answers for a lot of these free rushers. So they say, we will keep this simple. We'll protect you with boots, a running game, some other moving pocket stuff, and let you flourish within a simple offense that at least complements each other well. He can handle that mentally. I don't have any doubt about that. It's just a matter of when do you want to introduce him. So I will say he's the starter. I'm going to go conservative here, but Thanksgiving. But if he was the starter in October, I think something probably happened to Jacoby Brissett. But I think they will be comfortable at that point putting him on the field.
Yeah, I published a Patriots depth chart on Sunday, and I had Maye number 1 right now, but that's not necessarily my expectation for the start of the season. I'm just thinking like, okay, we're entering OTAs here in a couple of weeks. Like, no one's done anything to prove that they should be the starting quarterback of the New England Patriots. So like, I would expect Jacoby Brissett and Drake Maye probably to be splitting first team reps early in camp, just because it's like, why would Brissett be getting those over Drake Maye? If it was like an incumbent starter, if it was someone who was starting last year, then like, yeah, that guy might be the bona fide number 1 when camp starts. And then Drake Maye has a chance to like pass him like it was with Cam Newton and Mac Jones back in 2021. But for these guys, like Drake Maye was the 3rd overall pick. Jacoby Brissett signed a 1-year, $8 million deal. So I do think that they're going to have a chance to compete and beat one another out for the next few months here. And I think that they'll probably have a pretty even chance. And it wouldn't shock me if Drake Maye was the week 1 starter. I personally would probably sit him until everything's settled out, find out what the offensive line looks like, find out what the wide receivers look like. But if Drake Maye looks significantly better than Jacoby Brissett in training camp and preseason by the end of the summer, then yeah, he should be the starter. And I don't know. Development is important, but I also think that like if he's going to be the starter moving forward, there's not a point to some degree in holding that off. So I'd probably push it a little bit earlier. I'd probably say October, but I don't think that there's once again, non-zero chance that he's a starter week 1.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So Maye was my number 1. Baker was my number 2. You had that flipped. Who's your number 3 strongest feeling about as far as these draft picks go and when you're grading them? This is close for me, but I think I would go with Caedan Wallace, the Patriots' 3rd round pick, number 68 overall. I think I'd give this like a C+. And we talked about this during the draft. Yeah.
All right. Right before Caedan Wallace was drafted, number 59 overall, Blake Fisher, an offensive tackle on Notre Dame. Number 62 overall, Roger Rosengarten out of Washington. 63, Kingsley, can't pronounce his last name, out of BYU, not even going to try. 67, Brandon Coleman, TCU to the Commanders, and then 68, Caedan Wallace. So there was a run on offensive tackles right before Caedan Wallace was drafted. And at the time, I said to you, Patriots should have traded up. Like, they should have traded up at this point to get either Roger Rosengarten, Kingsley Somaeda, or potentially Brandon Coleman. But after they took Javon Baker, like, this is why the entire draft is important here. If the Patriots had traded up from 68 to 62, which is where the run really kind of started with Rosengarten and Kingsley, they probably also would have had to flip their 4th round pick for a 5th round pick, which means that you probably don't get Javon Baker. Like, that's the way that the draft trade chart shakes out, is that you're going to wind up losing one of those 4th round picks to trade down a little bit later. And based on how they drafted, it probably would have been Layden Robinson that the Patriots were prioritizing over Javon Baker. So would you rather have Javon Baker and Caedan Wallace, or would you rather have Roger Rosengarten and a 5th round wide receiver? I don't even know who that would have been. That would have been like Jacob Cowing or Anthony Gould. Like, I think you'd probably rather have Javon Baker and Caedan Wallace. So, well, I have strong feelings about the fact that the Patriots' top 2 left tackle options right now, at least on paper, are Chukwuma Okorafor, who's played almost exclusively right tackle in the NFL, and Caedan Wallace, who exclusively played right tackle in college. There's just a lot of projection there about protecting either a rookie quarterback's blind side or Jacoby Brissett's blind side. But the Patriots seem pretty confident that Caedan Wallace can do this. It certainly helps it helps the perception of this, I guess, that Olu Fashanu was playing left tackle over Caedan Wallace at Penn State. Olu Fashanu, number 11 overall pick in the NFL draft. But there's just a lot of projection here. I think I would have preferred them to take someone who had actually played left tackle in college rather than a guy who's a right tackle only. But at the end of the day, I do think that staying put rather than trading up was probably the right move, just because they did wind up with a guy that I have the strongest feelings about. You have the second strongest feelings about in Javon Baker. As far as a role for Caedan Wallace, I would say probably starting off the season as the backup left tackle. But once again, he'll have every opportunity to prove himself during training camp and preseason to win that role.
So the point about the opportunity cost or the cost analysis of trading up, right, is such a good one, because it's easy for us, it's easy for fans to say, okay, go and get Suamataia. As we were texting, as I realized in kind of retrospect, putting together, I think my grades for Polk or whatever else was going on at the moment, and then seeing Brandon Coleman, who's somehow snuck closer and closer to my heart, all the way from Texas as the draft process went on, because I just said he's a versatile left tackle. He's tough as nails. He meets their athletic benchmarks. That's a guy, go get him, plug him in. He's got long arms, still only 6'4". Who cares? The Commanders take him, which then, of course, made me feel more suspect about my own opinions, because who really wants to be aligned with the Washington Commanders come draft time? But there it was. So here's the simplest part about this, because I gave it a C in print. If I got the chance to do it over, I would give this a C+, because the Patriots did draft the position they needed to draft to. Yep. My issue is I want my projected left tackle to have played left tackle since high school. And Caedan Wallace has really not done that. And I know that Scott Peters is convinced. I know that Alex Van Pelt is convinced. I know that Elliott Wolf is convinced based in his athleticism. I pressed Maye about this yesterday in the final, post-draft, or 2 days ago in the post-draft press conference. It's just there are a lot of guys athletic enough to switch positions. And for some reason, they just can't. And the Patriots were so convinced, whether it was the East-West Shrine game, that he can do it. And if he can't, then you're in the same position you were a year ago. Let's throw all these low-level free agents at the wall. Let's throw all these late-round draft picks at the wall. City Sack can play right tackle. Oh, he hasn't done that since high school. Oh, or 2018 in college. That doesn't matter. Well, where did he go back to? His original position of right guard. It's not a one-for-one. It's just, again, the opportunity was there ahead of them to move up for a guy where if the draft starts, Drake May, Jalen Polk, and Kingsley Suamataia, or Brandon Coleman, we are all going, okay, who cares about the rest of the picks?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that. And that was there for them. And they took Wallace, who I will just say texted an executive about him later, and opinions vary. He was also the highest reach on the media consensus board, which you can poo-poo the media evaluators. The people or prospects atop that list of the biggest reaches, according to everyone's rankings, all pulled together and averaged over the last few years: Cole Strange and Tyquan Thornton. So the company he's joining is not great. But back to the executive. He had said, I had him as a right tackle only, and the character was a little questionable, which I just assailed everyone for saying the same thing about Christian Barmore. And for similar reasons, where my understanding, having covered Penn State and still have friends and contacts back there, said he didn't really commit until last year. And good for him for figuring it out at 23. I need to pour my whole life into this thing that is going to reward me potentially with generational wealth by playing the league long enough and help my friends and my family and me and whatever else I want to do. But it also feels like, in addition to a reach, in addition to a position switch, drafting a guy or signing one in free agency who's coming off a contract here, then just gets paid, and I don't know how he's going to respond now. And that's not saying that Caedan Wallace will not continue to invest and commit, and I hope he does. There are a lot of late bloomers out there. The light just turns on. But given all those things I just listed off, it feels like more hope than a plan. And in the third round with that big hole at left tackle, I need something a little more solid.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And yeah, that's why it is the pick that I feel the third most strongest about, because it was the third round pick. It was going to be tough to come out of the draft with a bona fide starting quarterback, starting wide receiver, and starting offensive tackle. Kind of did their best given the situation that they were in. This is getting deep in the weeds right now, but it's a good opportunity for me to talk about it. Like, Caedan Wallace has prototypical arm length at 34 inches, but his hands are 10 3/4 inches, which is like really, 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 really big hands. I feel like that should be factored into. This is something actually Austin Gale, my friend, used to work at PFF, now at the Ringer. I think it was him, either him or Danny Heifetz we're talking about. Like, I feel like we need to like subtract hand size from arm length somehow, because like that's a factor in it, right? Like if your hands are really long, then your arm length is shorter, right? So that is one that's one deep concern I have about Caedan Wallace. Very big hands, like as far as the hand to arm ratio here.
Okay, so the draft is behind us, but that means the best is still ahead of us. I'm talking playoff games, Celtics, Bruins, and I'll be there covering the Celtics for the Herald. We lost our guy Steve Hewitt, which brings me to my real point. You want to come with? Because you can find Celtics playoff tickets, lowest price guaranteed at Game Time, an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets easier and faster than ever. Prices on Game Time actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. You can find killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, including those pesky fees, views from your seat, and always, always, always the lowest price guarantee at Game Time, which takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. And honestly, I've used Game Time for other games as well. I'm a couple T-stops away from the Sox. If I want to go to a home game, check out on Game Time, wait outside the gates. It starts, prices go down, boom, I'm in the park 5 minutes later with the lowest price guaranteed. So you can do this with the Celtics coming up in the second round. We all know they're going to the Eastern Conference Finals, and then hopefully the finals. And you can be there right with them. Last minute ticket deals, flash deals, zone deals, all again, lowest price guarantee, even event cancellation protection, job loss protection, all at Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets or MLB tickets, all with the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app today. Create a free account and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, the account is free. Download Game Time, create an account, and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. That's Game Time today. Last minute tickets tomorrow, and the lowest price guaranteed.
But let's get into the fourth pick that I feel the most strongly about, and that is Washington wide receiver Ja'Lyn Polk. He was my second round pick in my last Patriots mock draft. So obviously I considered him an option there, even higher at the 34th overall pick. Patriots traded down from 34 to 37.
Oh, sorry. Let me interrupt you. What's Caedan Wallace's role next year?
I think I said it already. Starting off as the backup left tackle.
Okay. I agree. I think he makes a couple of starts. I don't know how they go, but I'm with you. Continue.
Ja'Lyn Polk, they traded back from 34 to 37. They flipped a fifth for a fourth in the process, which allowed them to take Javon Baker. So that was ultimately what seems like on paper a good trade for the Patriots to wind up with their two wide receivers this way. Ja'Lyn Polk, even before the draft, I asked a source like, hey, who are the X wide receiver options in this draft? And Ja'Lyn Polk was one of those, which I found somewhat surprising, just because I did watch a lot of Washington last year. I'm a big Washington Huskies fan. And I thought like, hey, this guy has the size and the speed and the physicality and all that to play X. But in the offense last year at Washington, Rome Odunze was the Patriots, was the Huskies X wide receiver. And Ja'Lyn Polk was like that kind of like hybrid Z slot, played some X, played a lot of slot because Jalen McMillan was hurt. But like, it's another guy who didn't necessarily play X wide receiver in college, and now the Patriots might be projecting him into that role in the NFL. But based on his skill set, like someone called him a second round version of Rome Odunze. So like it's once again a similar situation actually to Caedan Wallace, where Caedan Wallace wasn't the left tackle because Olufashanu was the left tackle for Penn State. Ja'Lyn Polk wasn't the X wide receiver for the Huskies last year because Rome Odunze, who was a top 10 pick, was the X wide receiver for the Huskies. Ja'Lyn Polk probably would have been an X wide receiver and number one option on almost every other team in college last year. He's a contested catch guy. Like I said, strong, physical. You can move him around the field. I think that this is also just a very safe option for the Patriots. Someone that is going to work hard. Tyler Hughes, the Patriots wide receivers coach, worked with him last year. He's a quality control coach at Washington, so they know exactly what kind of character that Ja'Lyn Polk has. Like, I feel like there's a very low percentage that Ja'Lyn Polk is going to bust in the NFL. I think that there's a good chance, as far as role goes, that he could be the Patriots' leading wide receiver next year, just based on the draft capital, his talent level, the talent level of the rest of the wide receiver group, that he will start the season as their ex-wide receiver, that he'll mesh well with Drake Maye and Jacoby Brissett and all these guys who haven't worked with the other Patriots wide receivers. So I have high hopes for Jalen Polk. I don't know if he winds up being the Patriots' best wide receiver out of this draft class in the long run, because I actually think that Javon Baker has a higher ceiling than Jalen Polk. But it was a safe pick. It was someone that they knew well, and there's a clear role for him to play for the Patriots in 2024.
So just like the Caedan Wallace pick, if I had to do this over again, I gave it a B- in the moment, and I don't think that's unfair. Again, it's taking into account what else could you have done.
Right.
The ceiling of the player, it gets an A+ as much for the upside as what he's shown already right now. What could you be in the league? And Jalen Polk, the reason I went B-, and I'll explain why I changed it to a B. This big C change. Congrats, Callie, and you really changed your mind. Is Jalen Polk, as I watched him and studied him, is he changing my life as an offense? And that's not fair, probably, for a second-round pick. But when you're the New England Patriots with one of the worst receiving corps going on possibly year 3 now, and you have a high top 40 pick, when you traded back from 34, and that kid can come in and play, I want him to have a chance to be able to hit all these home runs. And Jalen Polk is 6'1". He's over 200 pounds. He's a very natural receiver, great hands, good body control, incredible catch radius, tracks the ball well. The toughness is there, according to people on staff, as far as you read about. And I liked a lot of what I saw on tape. I just wonder, third down red zone, how much extra attention do I need to give this guy? Because his pro comps were most commonly Jacoby Myers, Tyler Boyd. Very good NFL receivers who are about number 2 or number 3 in whatever offense you want to put them in. The Patriots are loaded with number 2s and number 3s. So then the question is, okay, what would you have done differently, right? Again, your options. Ladd McConkey was there when they traded back at 34. The Chargers move up to get him. I had heard that morning, shared this with you, and I think a couple other people in conversations we were waiting for Drake Maye at Gillette Stadium. Someone told me that he was flagged for 2 bad medicals. So 2 different teams basically said thanks, but no thanks because of issues with his back. Okay, I have back issues. I'm nowhere near playing the NFL, but definitely because of those. That's bad. A.D. Mitchell fell to 45th, I think it was, with the Colts. And those are the only 2 receivers I think you go, I would have rather had him than Jalen Polk. And Mitchell's drop, I think, spoke to things that you heard, scuttlebutt, maybe about an attitude thing. His analytics certainly weren't good as far as yards per reception and per target. But I felt comfortable enough here with Jalen Polk. And I'm with you. I think he starts week 1. I think it's him, Pop Douglas, and KJ Osborne as Kendrick Bourne works back in a pitch count. He's a guy who's reliable, who can fit, and is going to reward that second-round pick investment. But again, I just going into this draft, especially after free agency, didn't you want someone who just kind of shocked you into like, if I'm a defense, I go, oh shit, like that's Jalen Polk, and there wasn't a ton of that on tape. Even if again, he's a very natural receiver, he's a good football player.
Yeah, a couple things on that. First of all, it went Jalen Polk, and then the next wide receiver off the board was 52 with Adonai Mitchell. So
50. Yeah,
that's a long drop.
Yeah.
If Jalen Polk wasn't drafted 37th overall, I think he would have gone within the next 5 picks. So this was not a reach for the Patriots. Like there was another team that would have taken Jalen Polk within the next 5 picks of the Patriots. So drafted within the range. Ladd McConkey, clearly, since the Patriots were willing to trade from that 34 spot down to 37, probably weren't going to be drafting Ladd McConkey.
Yeah.
Not the greatest fit for the Patriots offense in 2024 since he's so redundant with a lot of the other wide receivers that the Patriots already have. The other factor that we do have to throw in here, though, is that Xavier Legette goes 32nd overall. Keon Coleman goes 33rd overall. I don't know this for a fact, but I certainly would not be surprised if Legette or Coleman was still on the board at 34, that the Patriots maybe don't trade back at that point and take one of those guys. Once again, I don't know for sure. The Patriots said they would have taken Jalen Polk 34th overall. They wound up getting him 3 spots later and picked up an extra 4th-round pick. So great deal there. But it does feel a little bit like that trade down was related potentially to the players that came off the board right before they traded down at 34 overall. And I didn't give my grade before. I'd agree that it's a B for Jalen Polk. And quite honestly, like Xavier Legette, he had concerns as well. Like Xavier Legette was only 1 year. He was only productive for 1 year, and it was his 5th year, senior year at South Carolina. Certainly more explosive than Jalen Polk, but that's a concern to me. Keon Coleman, 4.62 40-yard dash. Like, that's a concern as well. That's significantly slower than Jalen Polk. And one thing that I will say, just for, like I said, I watched a lot of Washington football over the last throughout Jalen Polk's career. This isn't meant to shit on Michael Penix at all or anything like that. But I was of the opinion, at least by the end of the season, that Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, and Jalen McMillan were helping out Michael Penix maybe more than he was helping them out. They were making contested catches. They were getting open. They were making life easy for their quarterback. We'll see how that winds up working out for the Falcons. I still like Michael Penix as a prospect, but he was thrown to 3 very, very, very good wide receivers last year. And Rome Odunze was clearly the best of the bunch. And then I had Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan, pretty even actually, as far as that goes. Jalen Polk definitely the better fit for the Patriots in 2024 than Jalen McMillan would have been, since I view him as kind of like a slot only type of wide receiver.
Yeah, and McMillan's super crafty. Both of them have a really good sense and feel. And some of the knock on Polk too is, and I saw this last year, though you didn't get a ton of press in the Pac-12. Is how are you going to escape physical jams,
right.
One-on-one coverage, which you saw a little bit more against Michigan, but who didn't look worse against the eventual national champions, loaded with dudes, as Washington and some other people did. The last thing I'll say is this. Daniel Jeremiah had Jalen Polk 73rd. Mel Kiper Jr. had him, outside of his top 50. It's not just me, and I would trust that everyone listening to this podcast, particularly 45 minutes in, when we were trading 3-minute monologues, and we're going to go faster here, and this is my fault, would trust that we're speaking and acting in good faith. None of this is to get a ruse out of you in the way the talk radio would. If we're down on a player, that's just genuinely how we feel, and we understand that we could be wrong, right? You have to make your bets, but just whenever you make a bet, you understand you could lose. That's just part of how this goes. The grade is not something I'm going to cling to. If Jalen Polk goes off for 150 and 3 touchdowns in week 1, I'm going to put up a white flag immediately to anyone who gave him higher than a B, because you were right. And that's an incredible debut, which would also be a lot of fun to see and cover. Moving on. I gave him a C-. I want to hit on this quickly. I don't know where he is in your list. Layden Robinson, 3-2. 3-2. God, that would be the tiniest offensive guard in the history of time. He's 6'3",
low man wins.
2 pounds, super long arms, right guard at Texas A&M, multi-year starter, right guard only. 13 penalties the last 2 seasons. Issues in pass protection. Pressure rate around 4%. I think it went down to 3.6 in his senior year. Not great, palatable. I think they're betting on a bully who, again, has more athleticism to switch positions. It's just given where they were at 103, started the 4th round, started day 3, I'm going to take a tight end, take another receiver, and they get Javon Baker. So I feel better about this, but just I didn't love it. And clearly they love him. So hopefully he's a guy that I see as a interior backup, probably available, but doesn't play in the case of injury. And they just see as better, apparently, than City Sal and probably Antonio Mafi.
Yeah, I think that he could be a starter. We have no idea how this offensive line is going to shake out in 2024. Cole Strange coming off a knee injury, City Sal was a 4th-round pick, Antonio Mafi was a 5th-round pick, Jake Andrews, Nick Leverett. All these guys are just going to be thrown in the mix, and they're going to figure out who the 2 best guards to start the season are. And that very well could be Layden Robinson. One thing I want to say about Layden Robinson, I thought it was messed up. Everyone talks about all the pre-draft nonsense from anonymous scouts and everything. And there's a lot about Adonai Mitchell and some other things. An NFL scout told Go Long's Bob McGinn on Layden Robinson, the quote was, everybody's going to say he's dumb, right? But this mother effer went to the Senior Bowl and kicked all these guys' asses. Is he powerful? When we talked to Layden Robinson, there was 0% of me that thought that Layden Robinson was dumb. No. I think that's such a messed up thing to put out there about a player. And it's I don't know, I don't want to get on a soapbox and be oh, we need to be better, all these things. All these evaluations and everything like that matter. But it's can we use some better verbiage than that, especially if we're going to publish it? I don't know. I don't know if we need to sugarcoat things, but I do think if you're not going to put your name to something and call someone dumb, it's a messed up thing. And I think that for that reason alone, I'm rooting for rooting for Layden Robinson. And yeah, I think there's a decent chance that he could wind up being a starter for the Patriots, just given the situation that they have there on the interior offensive line with so many question marks.
Well, and let's say this too, he's making the team, right? You're a top 100 pick.
Yeah.
He's not going anywhere. He's going to be on the roster. And we are rooting for all of these kids in their early 20s to have success and do well. It's just what the Patriots' decision was, given their other options, and the positional value of a right guard who's only played right guard was why we're not high on it. So, yeah, I'm with you. We don't need to do the soapbox thing. If you want more of that content, though, Chris Ballard, I'll say this, probably one of the more overrated GMs in the entire league, just given the Colts' lack of a division title, as you've seen the last 7 years, while everyone else in the AFC South goes up and down and passes the Colts. Had a great rant, though.
Yeah, he did.
A.D. Mitchell, and how it's a bunch of bullshit, and he's sorry, but he's not sorry. He dropped a few F-bombs. Anyway, it was excellent, and that gets to Doug's point, which we just don't have more time for here. 3 more picks. Joe Milton, Marcellas Dial, both 6-rounders, then Jaheim Bell goes in the 7th round. I'll just skip ahead. I had a B+ for Milton. I had a B for Dial, and a B- here for Jaheim Bell, which is to say I was fine, too pleased with all of these picks. And because they're 6th and 7th rounders, man, like if we're weighting these properly in like a GPA scale, the first round pick is like an 8-credit course that you took. The Jaheim Bell in the 7th round is a 1-credit flyer about that you meet once a week and it's 30 minutes. And who really cares? If you got an F, you can still get an A- for like the whole report card. Like which of these did you feel most strongly about? Because we'll largely skip over the next 2. We'll hit them quickly.
I probably felt the strongest about Jaheim Bell. I just like taking an athletic tight end there. I think that with the new kickoff rules, he could wind up playing a pretty significant role on special teams early in his career. And then the hope is that he'll develop as a route runner and then potentially, be a tight end contributor later in his career. He was someone who was regarded as like a 5th/6th round prospect. To get him late in the 7th round, I thought was good value. And then, with Joe Milton, like, big surprise for the Patriots, take a 5th quarterback, 2nd quarterback in the draft. But that's another one that I just thought it's a smart pick. Like, there's a lot of tools there. I think Dan Brugler in The Athletic in his Beast draft guide said that, like, he's got first-round skills. It's just about developing those. So certainly, in a worst-case scenario, Joe Milton somehow winds up being the Patriots' starting quarterback. But if he's a developmental backup, if he's someone that you can eventually, trade or something like that, which the Patriots have done in the past with Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett, I just think it's a good idea to draft quarterbacks, someone that can help Drake Maye, someone who can help out the defense on the scout team because he's got such a big arm, because he's such a big body, because he's so athletic. He said himself, there's no chance he moves over to tight end. So I'm glad that we've got some clarity on that, so we don't have to write more Malik Cunningham, wide receiver quarterback stories this offseason. But I don't know, it's going to be fun to watch him. And I thought that was just a fun swing for the Patriots to take on someone who's got a lot of skills.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love the Milton pick, mostly because of fun, not any real football analysis. But I think, and you can answer this better than I could, because my first training camp was 2018, and I've been following the team very closely, coming out of high school, college a little bit after, and then, go to work and lose touch with the team, come back and cover it. But this has the chance, because of Maye and Milton, and let's just say Javon Baker somehow, to be one of the most exciting training camps we've watched, offensively at least, in how long? Like, I would go back to 2018.
Yeah. Since the Tom Brady days, absolutely. Just because, you've got 2 rookie quarterbacks. All eyes will be on Drake Maye at quarterback. And 2021 was pretty fun with Mac Jones, just because it's a rookie quarterback. But there's so much more upside in this rookie quarterback in Drake Maye. Plus, you throw in the 2 young wide receivers who should be making plays on the field. Yeah, it's going to be a really fun training camp. And we'll see if Patriots fans come out in droves the way that they used to back in 2017, 2018. The crowd's been a little bit lighter over the last few years. But I do think that Drake Maye and these young wide receivers are the type of players who could bring out the fan base and rally some more support around the team than they've had over the last couple of years.
Well, Javon Baker thinks they're going to do that, and it's going to be that winning mindset that everybody in Boston
he's going to perform miracles out there.
I'm still not, yeah, to not cite the quote exactly, still not over that experience over Zoom. Not to mention, we should say the Instagram Live where he's calling where the liquor at, and everyone's going to pay, and he's going to kill people across from him. Great confidence, love the confidence. Yes. You just want to channel it the right way. Joe Milton, 64% career completion percentage, split between Michigan and Tennessee. Very quarterback friendly offense in Tennessee. A spread, extra splits outside the numbers for the receivers, defined reads. And look, his NFL stock didn't really go up down there despite that. A little slow to process, all the arm talent in the world. I think he's on the practice squad. But just to change it up, man, like I've watched enough 6'1" or under, weak-armed but accurate QBs come through New England. Bailey Zappi, Nathan Rourke might be a touch taller. Just like, guys, talk about not changing your life. Joe Milton is not going to improve the winning of the football in my life, but he's absolutely going to change the excitement around watching that. And I think also, if you're going to take a second quarterback, make it an upside play. Like Alex Van Pelt, I don't think will get much more out of Joe Milton than we saw in college. And again, rooting for the kid, rooting for all the kids.
Yeah.
But based on what I saw over a couple of years now, I just think he is what he is. And so who knows? Maybe he's a, like the tush-push package with Joe Milton, because he's a big, strong, freaking dude. Marcellas style. Anything stand out to you about him?
One last thing on Milton. I'm putting together a 53-man roster projection, and I actually would have Milton making the 53-man roster as of now. Listen, this is not a very deep Patriots roster. Okay. I'm glad that I went through this exercise of putting together this 53-man roster projection, because it's a pretty easy one to do. There's not a lot of crazy omissions on this 53-man roster projection. So I do think that with the talent of this roster right now, there's definitely a way to fit Joe Milton on there to be that third quarterback. I don't have a ton of takes about Marcellas Dial. I will say that it's if they do plan on using him as that safety / cornerback hybrid, somewhat similarly to how they used Miles Bryant, I actually like this pick more because there were some needs there at safety for the Patriots. And if they believe that Marcellas Dial can play both positions, that just raises his value.
Yeah, I agree. He had great straight line speed, 4.46, guy who checks in just under 6 feet tall. Bad 3-cone, 7.29, so quickness is not great. But over his 3 years as a starter, 3 picks, 31 pass breakups, and has got reputed strong man-to-man skills. I can confess, I did not watch a ton of Marcellas Dial, who was projected to be, priority for agent, basically. But play special teams, positional versatility is going to be key. I think he makes a team sticking as kind of CB5. And again, they're going to play the kids. So these guys get an edge in a way that I think, some late round draft picks of the Belichick era, better teams, more veteran laden teams, and only one of the oldest teams in the league. And that was not just Tom Brady and Matthew Slater weighing everything down with how old they were. That's what the Patriots preferred under Belichick. And that's another stark change we'll see here. Bell, I think it's a good point about the change in kickoffs. You want bigger guys, not necessarily faster ones. He's fast for a tight end, 4.61 in the 40. Good yards after catch player, but not a good blocker. Didn't play a ton of teams at Florida State, where he transferred and was a 1-year starter. A very loose Jonnu Smith comp, which is not to send everyone listening to this, jumping in front of a moving vehicle, because he's a 7th-round pick. You know what I mean? If you get a B or above on a 7th-round pick, it's hard to screw these up. I don't think they did. I think these were fine selections, and reinforces what I thought the whole draft. I thought this was like a solid double into the gap.
I want to say something real quick about Jaheim Bell. The word H-back is used so often in pre-draft coverage and in scouting reports for a position that is almost never utilized in the NFL. How often do you hear oh, he's an H-back type, that guy could play. When are we seeing H-backs, honestly, in the NFL? So rarely. So he is one guy who got that H-back. So maybe the Patriots throw in some H-back looks for Jaheim Bell, but no, I think that he actually was used very often in the backfield back in 2022 with the Seminoles. I think he scored 4 rushing touchdowns that year. The majority of his snaps actually came in the backfield. So he is a kind of toolsy player that they can have some fun with.
So he is an H-back.
Well, he was in college, but in the NFL, I don't know. Who's the best H-back in the NFL right now?
Juszczyk.
I know, but I guess, but he's also
he is
a straight up fullback, right?
Because he's more H-back than fullback. I don't know. I'd have to come back to that. I was thinking of the, what are the positions you call on a triple option? You have your quarterback, you've got your halfback. There's the, we'll come back to that. But again, Jaheim Bell might change things. He's just got one path to getting there on the roster of sticking, and that's trouble for me as far as guys who Dial could be on special teams. He could play safety. He could play corner. Joe Milton could be your quarterback sneak guy or Hail Mary specialist. It's just going to bring a lot of fun and upside, and that's about it. So I said B+ overall for the draft for the offseason. Where did you land on that?
I put a solid B+. I'll go with B+ on the offseason. Might be a little bit generous, but they did a good job of extending their own guys. They're building a culture here. I think they did a good job in the draft. As far as like how their picks ranked against the consensus, they didn't rank that high. But as far as like draft grades among draft experts, I think that they were 12th in like a consensus thing that I saw sometime this morning. So lots of B's, B pluses, some A's mixed in there for them. And spoiler alert, in that 53-man roster projection that I was putting together, all 8 draft picks made the 53-man roster in my projection. And I think that to some degree speaks to the talent of the roster, but also speaks to them drafting for need this year. Also, there's just going to be fewer special teams only guys on this roster in 2024. We saw that with their moves this offseason. And it was a weak undrafted class. We'll see how these guys wind up playing in training camp or preseason. Like maybe someone surprises us, but the majority of the guys that they signed were not players who even had like scouting reports in Dane Brugler's Beast draft guide. It was guys who were like listed later on. There was really only, I think, like 1 or 2 who actually had like legitimate reports written up about them. So this was a draft without a lot of depth. Like later in the 6th, 7th round, it got pretty light. So I think that if they were going to go a little bit cheaper on undrafted free agents, this was the year to do it because there wasn't a lot of talent left after the draft.
There was Tariq Owens, who I will not explain how I lucked into that scoop, going to the 49ers, son of Terrell Owens, Missouri State receiver, who I heard the Patriots had liked and kind of kept on that for obvious reasons. He stays in the West Coast. But as far as the other UDFAs, you're right. A lot of people have talked about that. The NIL money, you can stay in college, develop a little bit more, not at the expense of future earnings, because you're making that money now when you're in college. It's kind of, I think, fragile or maybe even chaotic, the whole college scene might be. But let's wrap on the rookies with the UDFAs. I got to be honest. I don't have strong feelings on these. I think if you have strong feelings on these, you better be willing to die on that island because these dudes been undrafted for a reason. And, it's the whole league said none of these guys were worthy of being drafted. It doesn't mean the whole league's wrong. It just means you have to be right in the face of that. I will say from a positional standpoint, and you reported on him, making or signing, John Morgan from Arkansas, edge, 6'2", 270. Dude who had 16 sacks. Granted, those are over, I think, 64 starts. And some more tackles for loss and some forced fumbles in there. Like, I think he'll have a chance. You talk about the special teams overlap and some defensive impact on the edge. I don't think he's special again, but someone I'm keeping an eye on.
Based on what I was hearing as they were kind of in the midst of signing a lot of these guys, I was told that Charles Turner, the LSU center, was the most notable player out of the Patriots signed. He's not the greatest athlete, but you don't necessarily need a center to be a great athlete. Only ran a 5.59 40, but some decent agility drills, 6'4", 303, start for the last 2 years at LSU at center. So I don't know. It all kind of depends on how the Patriots feel about Jake Andrews, like how the current regime, the new offensive coordinator, the new offensive line coaches. Jake Andrews was someone who was very undersized as a center. So like maybe there's a world in which Charles Turner and Jake Andrews compete for that backup center role. But at this point, I have no idea. But he was one guy who actually had a scouting report. And like I said, he was a guy that as they were signing players, someone told me that he was their most notable UDFA signing.
And he played for a freaking great offensive line at LSU. So that dude who's surrounded by good talent and some that will be supposedly drafted in the first round next year, kept it all together. Didn't get drafted, but obviously now here in New England. And that'll lead to my final thought here because, and this could be about any player, it could be about any draft pick, like position, whatever you want. It's the most boring thought you could have after a draft like this when you involve a quarterback. But we've just talked Drake Maye to death, and we'll write more about Drake Maye. We're going to have a lot of good stuff on the Herald website. I think it's important to keep in mind that as I contrast this draft, or we can continually put what the Patriots are doing now versus the backdrop of Belichick, okay? Your next compared to your ex. A lot of these draft picks are going to be made partially because of the disagreement that Elliott Wolf had with Belichick at the time about past draft picks. So I might be here, and just was, giving a C- to Layden Robinson. Well, you already have City Sal. Elliott Wolf might look at City Sal and go, no, God, I didn't want to do that. Why are you penciling him at right guard? I think my guy is going to start. And so we all know it's a regime change, but you have to understand that there's a lot in this draft, starting with Javon Baker for sure, who would have been traded for a future fifth as soon as that Zoom that Belichick had taken him. He is shipping him out of Foxborough to Siberia in the Russian League. It doesn't matter. He's going to offload him as soon as he drafted him. Belichick went out and drafted Drake Maye. And so this is just to say that as they rebuild, you might see some redundancies or feel that way. Mm-hmm. It's just because they disagreed in the moment, and now Elliott has the control and the say and probably will moving forward. So that's just something to keep in mind where, I see it and I'm not happy with it, and I explain why. But that explains the apparent redundancy of some of these picks and the decisions that they'll be making, because I know if Elliott had been charged earlier, wishing to say this is the right call, the Patriots would have not have made all of the same moves that they did in Belichick's last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would argue that my point about hand size to arm length was definitely much more boring than that. So.
We end on the interior offense line. We have to get out of like the guard, center guard area. We need a final thought. Where are we going to go?
I don't know. We got rookie minicamp in like 2 weeks. That'll be fun to watch. Drake Maye and Jalen Polk and Javon Baker and all these guys. That's not really a point. It's just something that'll be fun to watch because we haven't watched rookie minicamp in a long time.
Never since I've been on the beat, and I don't think you have ever either.
I mean, I think that we could. The first year I was on the beat, either 2013 or 2014, I think that we were allowed to like watch them stretch, but that was it. So I mean, if we're getting a full practice, like that's pretty wild, and it's gonna be a good first glimpse at this draft class as a whole and see where they stack up.
So you're telling me that Belichick broke a rule that he could let the media watch Jimmy Garoppolo and apply a little bit more pressure on Brady in that 2014.
I actually think it was 2013, but I don't know. I mean, that was 11 years now at this point.
Yeah, the Jamie Collins show. Okay.
Yes.
Well, this has been fun. Congrats again on the Christian Barmore scoop. The Patriots continue to do good business around what we think is a largely good draft, and I hope you do too at home. The key now is going to be patience, but you can fill the time with rookie minicamp coming up in a couple of weeks. You will have coverage there. I don't know if I will be there with you or in Orlando or Cleveland as we patch together some Celtics coverage, but we will make it work nonetheless and have tons more on the BostonHerald.com. And, of course, follow Doug. And we'll be back later this week. More draft talk. And, yeah, that's about it. I need another nap. I don't know how you know this draft was so long.
It was a long draft. By the end there, it really would. I will say that, the break between the 4th round pick and the 6th round pick was kind of nice. I was able to get out of the house, watch my daughter play softball. So that was good. It made the draft go by a little bit quicker, but there's a lot of sitting, waiting around, and then rushing once they actually make picks. So I'm glad it's over.
We were covered for everyone at home going, oh my God, how are you leaving the house when you have the one draft to cover? Oh, we were prepared, had things pre-written, and your boy was here at home in the recliner hanging out. All right, that's enough. Thank you, sir, as always, for the time.
Absolutely.